Alright, so I'm going to show you guys where to locate this SOP. It's in shared /forms archive /superintendent /systems, and the file name will look something like this right here: gpm_os_bid_entry_super and _system. So if you can find that in that shared forms archive superintendent systems, then you've got the SOP to compare to. So right now we're going to figure out where to locate the live GPM for these current customers, and also I'm going to teach you how to navigate the GPM right after this. So if you go in Ignite to the shared /current customers /the customer's job name and code .structure /production.structure, and then we're going to open the latest and updated GPM that we're working on for that customer. So what I'm going to teach you guys right now is how to populate this live GPM with the OS bid costs. So column H right here is the outside super bid costs. These OS bid costs are placed in here once the outside super and the vendor have come to an agreement on the job, after the vendor has looked at it and given a scope. And you'll notice again column H is that outside super bid cost. When the inside super gets this bid cost, this GPM is pretty much going to be empty, so they're going to have to input these prices in here from the agreed upon bid. So all the items over here on these columns will be populated. The vendor names will already be in there. It might be different or it might change, but the vendor names will be in there. You're also going to have the phases, demo, paint, window, framing. Those are going to be filled in. The description, which gives you a bit of an idea of what that operation is. And the PM budget is one of the most important columns. This is what the project manager actually thought the task would cost. So this will already be populated. One of the other things I'd like to mention when you look at these line items, these gray ones are only for individual costs. So you'll only have one cost and one spec for each of these individual line items that are gray. When you see these double tan line options, those are actually going to be for labor or material separated out, or they could be for labor and material together. But your super is going to actually give you the line item number on the spec, and we'll see that in a minute. So you don't really need to go hunting for the vendor name or columns or anything. The spec is actually going to have the column number or line number on it. So as an example, I'm going to delete some of these outside super bid costs and use the approved outside super invoices to fill these back in and show you how that process is done. Now that I've deleted a few of those OS bid amount entries, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to fill those in. So we're going to use the actual approved spec. Alright, so I've shown you how to find the GPM. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to find this OS bid costs. And the OS bid cost is always going to be emailed to you, so you don't really have to worry about it. The outside super is going to email the costs straight over to the IS, and they'll enter the prices in the GPM, and then once that's done, they'll upload them to Ignite straight for the supers. So the first spec we're going to take a look at is for framing material. So there's a few things you want to notice on here. First, you want to see the bid accepted stamp. That's the outside super accepting that spec and the price. They're going to email the inside super, and from there the inside super is going to take that price and populate the OS bid on the GPM. So you can see the subcontractor's name in that subcontractor column in the spec on here as well, and that matches 84 lumber. One of the most important things to key in on is in this subcode / category / type / line number. The line number is actually the most important thing. That's going to tell you where this spec or vendor is actually located on the live GPM. So if we take that number 28 from the spec and we go down to the GPM, so right here, line number 28, he's got the bid accepted amount of 4,306.01. So he's entering that there from the spec onto the live GPM, and you'll see that it's the contract amount on the spec. So you're going to notice a couple of differences once you move that contract amount from the spec over to the live GPM and put it in the correct line number for the OS bid amount. Column G, the dollar difference got filled in, and that's the difference between the PM budget and the OS bid cost. So in this case, the outside super is $2,215.53 over the project manager's budget. And the percentage difference. So here it says 206% over. We actually are going to have to, in this case, email the project manager and let them know that the super is over budget and how much they're over budget by. That way the project manager can address that and take care of the problem ahead of time before it gets too out of hand. Now that that one's completed, we're going to move on to the next one. So now we're looking at the Windows spec. So you can see it's Fajardo Construction, and we've got line 17 here on the spec. So we'll go to line 17 in this live GPM. So you can see it matches over here on the line GPM. That's Fajardo Construction for the Windows. And we're going to take that contract amount from the spec, that $7,329.18, and put it in this column H, the OS bid entry. So right here. So now that we've entered that amount, in this case we're $200 under budget because the text is orange and not red. However, we are at 97.3%, so it is over that 90% threshold for the project manager's budget, and we're going to need to email the project manager and let them know what the situation is. So we're done with this spec now, and we'll go ahead and close it. This one again is Fajardo Construction, and we're going to go to that line number 11 that you see on the spec. So we'll go to the live GPM and match that and go to line number 11 as well. And we are going to enter that contract amount from the spec into the OS bid amount on the live GPM. So column H, we're going to put that $2,100 for Fajardo Construction on line number 11 in the GPM. $2,100. So we could take a look at column G, the dollar difference, and we'll see that we're $1,473.16 below budget. And column F, the percentage difference is looking good. It's at 58.8%, so it's below that 90% PM budget that we want to be at. So as long as we're below the 90%, we don't have to email the project manager. We're good to go. So I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of how to enter these double entries on the GPM. Alright, so we're talking about the double entries in the GPM. So when you see these tan lines, so what this means is we sometimes as general contractors will provide the material, or in this case we've actually provided the haul off. So Fajardo Construction. So in this example, Fajardo Construction is doing the labor and the material, so that's why you'll see this $3,573.16 here, because he's doing labor and materials. So you'll see Fajardo Construction in both of those tan lines in the vendor column. So even when this zero occurs in the budget, it actually means that he's providing it because his name is over here in the budget. Both numbers are up here, and that's what gives us labor and the material. When we're going to provide the material, we would change this cell here. In this case it was Western Wastes, so we'll click right here and we'll change this to Western Waste, because they're the guys that would provide the haul off, and we would pay them. We'll just say it's $573.16. So we put that right here down below the other cost, and it makes it into a single line item entry. And we're going to go ahead and minus this $573.16 from. So when you're minusing this haul off cost from the cell above, be sure to put a minus $573.16 or whatever your cost is after the equation in that cell. So this is what we'll pay that vendor directly for doing the labor, and we would be providing that haul off or material, whichever you're working with, for that $573.16. So now we're talking about adding a cost in the OS bid column when there's no PM budget in place. So in this example, say we've got pickup and Fajardo Construction. It's going to do the pickup. So Fajardo Construction, he's going to do pickup. So we'll come in this cell and say pickup. And we're not going to put anything in the PM budget because the project manager didn't put anything in there ahead of time. We're going directly over to the OS bid cost column, and we'll say he had a $300 cost, and that's all we need to do. So just remember, in a situation where we don't have the PM budget already in place, all you're going to want to do is plug in the information like we did in the example, with that vendor name as Western Waste, that description we did with the pickup list, and there's no PM budget, so we left that blank, and we filled in the OS bid cost with that $300 for the pickup list. Now we're going to go over extras, supplements, and credits, because everything affects the money that the super has to produce the job, and this live GPM that we're working on gets updated weekly. So for these supplements, extras, and credits, the estimating department has to update the GPM weekly for any changes that there might be. So let's pretend that we've got a supplement for fencing and Fajardo's going to do it. So the estimating department would add him in here as the fencing sub. The estimating department would put in the dollar amount. So say the budgeting amount is $300 for the fencing, and after estimating puts in that $300 for the fencing budget, and these columns are all filled out. Then when the super creates this budget or the spec amount, they're going to come in and put in whatever that might be. We'll say it's the $300, and you do it just like any other single line item entry. The difference for extras, supplements, and credits is the estimating department has to fill in these line items right here for the spec to be in the budget. On these supplements, extras, and credits, a rule of thumb that you could follow as a superintendent, let's just say, is that the estimating department hasn't filled in these lines yet. What you could do as a super is add up all the money for the fencing and just cut it in half. So say you had 50% of that money to do the fencing. So if the supplement for fencing added up to $600, you could cut that in half and you'd have $300 for the fencing, which you'd want to record in the OS bid column. So you can go ahead and plug that in. And if estimating didn't put in these columns A through E, again, you could put in 1/2 of what the retail value is or 1/2 of what the supplement is. Just be sure you're putting that in the OS bid cost column. Once you've finished entering these agreed upon contract amounts by the outside super, you're good to go ahead and upload these bid ticks. Be sure every time after you get it from the outside super that you are uploading it to Ignite in the correct folder and changing the dates. So we want to save this spec, and we want to also save the live GPM in the correct places with the new date. So like I just mentioned, we need to upload the saved and updated GPM to the correct folder in Ignite. So we need to save with the current date that we're working on as well, and the folder we're uploading to is shared, current customers, whatever the current job is that you're working on, and production. So right in the production folder is where we want to upload it.